Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to me undertaking the endeavour, thematic use of word there for once, my endeavour to give every announced ship for Star Citizen a brief description, all in one small series of videos where I try not to ramble too much, though knowing me, I ramble way too much. Quick protocol, I want to mention one thing. You've probably already noticed that things are looking a wee bit weird in the me department. I dyed my hair green, and halfway through I realised, wait a minute, what's this going to look like on a green screen? Well, here we are. It looks bad, but mistakes have been made. Now we've got that out the road. Today is all about Misc. So without any further ado, let's jump in and give Misc a brief description. Right, so Misc are one of the oldest manufacturers in game, and let's see, Misc is an abbreviation, not an abbreviation. Can't remember when you take the first letter. You know what I'm trying to say, but it stands for Musashi Industrial and Starflight Concern. They're sort of like the old noble family, the noble house. They've got that sort of vibe to them in the lore. They've been around for a really long time, with only people like RSI being a lot older than them. They are extremely industrial focused and extremely defensive focused in their ships sort of builds. Almost all of their ships, actually, off the top of my head, I can't think of any that are military contracts. Though there is that, oh wait, there's the Gemini, but we'll talk about that when it gets to it. Yeah, so they lean very heavily into industry. At the moment, they are the sort of premium industry manufacturer. So if you get something from them, you know it's going to be quality and one of the best, like, at its role kind of thing. That's their thing they sort of do. They are probably one of the most famous manufacturers in game, and actually make the most popular manufacturer in game, sort of popularity ship in game. The Hull C, which we'll talk about more when we get to it, it is like the AI are going to be just flooded with this ship. Most of them are going to be in a Hull C. They're the most common ship in the game, though there will be a lot of different hulls. Just the hull in general is going to be what 80% of NPCs are going to be riding around in. So without any further ado, I think we should jump in and talk about my favourite ship, my baby, the one I want most in-game, because it's the first on the alphabetical, and it is the Endeavour. Oh, I love the Endeavour. So the Endeavour, this is my favourite concept in-game. Well, it's not in-game, it's a concept, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's my favourite concept for the game. There we go, that's how to word it. Oh, I can't wait for this thing to be released, though it is not going to be released for a very, very long time, as I sort of lean closer to the microphone to try and capitalise that discussion? Words I'm saying. I'm getting distracted. Yeah, the Endeavour. It is a flying space station. It has the front section of the ship, which decouples and recouples to the rear section of the ship, and the rear section of this ship is 6 modular stations that can be lots and lots of different things. You could have science areas back there, you can have hangars, you can have hospitals, you can have factories, you can have farms. This is the most modular ship in the game, and it is going to be useful to everyone. No matter what you want to do, there is going to be a way the Endeavour makes itself useful, and that is why this ship is my... Oh, I want it. The first thing that got me interested in it is that picture of it with the domes for the farms. As soon as I seen that, it reminded me of, like, if you ever played, can't remember what one it was, but it was one of the civilizations where you got to build the colonization ship, and you had the big domes you could put on it, and you could get a better score by putting more parts on it before launching it. It reminded me so much of that, and I thought that was a cool aspect of that Civ game. This ship has that in spades. I really like the farms on it, and I really like the science on it. We really need to see what science gameplay is going to be before we can make a call on its science stuff. But this ship, oh yeah boy, you see it every time that it is brought up to CIG, their eyes roll. They know mistakes were made in the past. This ship has so much that they know it's going to be one hell of a bastard for them to implement. It is going to be, literally, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the very last ship added to the game after the game is fully released and before they start thinking of like expansion type ships. Like they're working on an expansion, or I don't know what their monetization is going to be like post-release. No one does. They don't even know yet. They just want to speculate themselves. But before they go into their sort of post-release monetization and products, whatever they do, this is going to be like the last ship ever made before they go into that expansion or slow trickle, whatever way they do it post-release. And I'm about 80% sure of that. And if not, it's going to be one of the damn last. So if you're getting this anytime soon with real money, you're going to be in it for the long haul. But I think it's going to be a really good long haul, because for what it is cheap as chips. It is an insanely cheap ship for what it does. So if you could pick up a CCU to it, that would be like, mwah. I just recently finished off my CCU chain to this, and the sale just passed recently. And I expect this thing is going to skyrocket. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like $1,000 ship by the time it's had all its price hikes. Once they start actually going back and rework on it, it'll go up. And then as they do more work on it, it'll go up. Just like a lot of ships like the Carrack and the Banu Merchantman have been going up and up and up and up. I see this ship is skyrocketing. The latest theory crafting people have been doing by looking at the modules that you can attach to it, they think this thing is going to increase to like at least the size of a javelin, possibly all the way up to the size of a Bengal. So this ship is going to be absolutely huge, and that is needed for them just to be able to deliver the hangar modules that they say are going to attach to this thing. Because the size of the hangars have drastically increased since they originally concepted this. And if this thing can still get that hangar module and like just the size increase of that, extrapolate that to the rest of the ship, then it's going to be at least javelin size. It's going to be huge. It is going to be an industrial capital ship. And it is going to be able to do almost anything in game to some regards with all its modularity. And apart from combat, as long as you're not steering into combat, it's going to be able to do anything in game. And it is even going to be able to facilitate combat. Like if you put lots of hangars in there, it could be like a small carrier for you. If you put hospitals in there, it could be a hospital for your ground combat. It's going to be able to facilitate combat style gameplay, but just not have the main role in the combat style gameplay. So no matter what you're doing, this thing could be an amazing asset to you. And if you want to spend a wee bit extra money in game, it is one of my highest recommendations possible. This thing is going to be insane. This thing, yeah. Oh, I can't wait for it. I've rambled on about this ship way too much because it is my favourite and it got a wee bit extra spotlight, but Misc is quite big, so we need to move on. If I scroll down to my notes, who's next? The Freelancer. The Freelancer, once again, is a series of ships. So it's not really a series, it's more of a variants. So there's variants, that's a better way to describe it. And so we'll talk about the base model, and then we'll talk about how the variants change it up. So first of all, the base model Freelancer. It is a great step up from a starter ship. It is often very likened to the Cutlass Black, which is one of the most popular ships in game. It is a great runabout. Well, not runabout, it's bigger than a runabout, but you know what I mean. It's a great A to B ship, a daily driver. It has it feels an awful lot like a camper van type situation, so it's like a flying camper van. It has a good amount of storage, really good defenses for its size, and good amount of guns for its size. It is a great little ship. It's a jack of all trades, master of none. It's sort of like your step up from your starter ship, a rival to the Cutlass Black, whereas the Cutlass Black I often describe as being this sort of role, but more offensive and fast-paced in its sort of gameplay focus, whereas this is the more sort of turtle version of that, where it's more defensive and slow-paced in its sort of role of it. So the two sort of cover the same, not niche, but the same they fulfill the same sort of needs, but one leads slightly more aggressive, one slightly more defensive, sort of branching off in different directions. The Freelancer is great for literally every role in the game. It can do some combat, it can do some trading. It's got entry-level multi-crew gameplay, so you can have like your co-pilot in there, and there's 2 seats in the back, which used to be for the 2 turrets, but now they're pilot controlled, which makes a hell of a lot of sense because this ship was designed back when the game was going to be a lot smaller in the scale. So they thought multi-crew, this was going to be one of the bigger multi-crew ships type thing, and so that has changed drastically since the scope of the game has changed. So it's got those extra seats that it doesn't really need anymore. It's got that sort of car vibe with the 2 seats at the front, 2 seats at the back. Not much else to say. If you're wanting to just have that first full step up the ladder from a starter ship, this is where to go. I would definitely recommend your first purchases in-game or out-of-game after your starter ship would be upgrading your starter ship to a Cutty or a Freelancer. I was going to say Prospector, but that's something else, we'll talk about that later. Just so that you've got a large step up. You're going to be able to do so much more combat, you're going to be able to do so much more trading. It is a huge step up from the starter ship, but in the same sort of vein as the starter ship, jack of all trades, master of none. But if you do have a more sort of specific thing in mind that you really want to do, like you definitely want to do combat, or you definitely want to do trading, or you definitely want to do mining, that's when you'd get those things instead of this first. Yeah, great jack of all trades, master of none, step up from starter ships. So, how do the variants change things up? So, you got the Freelancer Der, which is focused on exploration and discovery. It has better scanners and a better fuel tank, and I think a better fuel speed. I think it's got some sort of fuel refining type thing going on. I can't remember, it's been a long time. But it's basically the exploration variant of the Freelancer. So if you want to explore the stars, have a better fuel tank, have a like exploration focused in your gameplay, like find things and then get people to pay you to tell you where they are, or you to tell them where they are, I should say, then that is the variant for you. It's going to be such a, like, that's something starships really can't do, because starships have next to no fuel capacity. They're really weak in the sort of movement sort of side of the game. Like, they're not great for getting you from A to B if that is more than just, say, planet side to station side. Whereas this Freelancer Dirt is going to be a huge step up from that. You're going to be able to make jumps between systems without worrying about fuel. You're going to be able to have that extra reach in your gameplay. Okay, the Freelancer Max. Now, the Freelancer Max takes the Freelancer chassis and it just gives it one hell of a huge ass, basically. It has a hell of a lot more storage. And the Freelancer Max is if you really, really like cargo, but you don't want to give up all your combat capabilities. So it's a lot worse in combat, because I'm pretty sure the guns are downsized, or loses the ones on one side or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it does have slightly less in the gun department, and it has an awful lot more storage for trading. So, and it's still got quite good armor for a trader though as well, because considering it's a freelancer base, a freelancer model. And yeah, so if you want to go trade, but you still want to have that wee bit of a bite, Freelancer Max. Don't rely on the bite though, it's still a trade ship. The Freelancer Misc, which is the last one, which is a combat variant, which was sold to the military, and is a combat ship. And it is basically the Freelancer, and it's given a wee bit more armor, and it's given one hell of a lot of missiles, so that this can be like a backline support vessel in a military battle, firing off those missiles into combat. And that's its main sort of role. It is quite a good gunboat, and it was the meta for a long time when missiles were really powerful, and it was the meta for combat for a long time to have something like a Freelancer Misc. So those are the Freelancer variants, and what is next? And I'm going to take a break to get a drink because my throat is hurting me. The whole series! My other baby! See you all in a second for the whole series. The whole series! One of my other babies. You can tell a wee bit I lean heavily into industry. I'll explain that a wee bit in a second. The reason I lean heavy into industry is because I really want to have the money in game to facilitate my sort of whatever I desire to do. So if I log in on a Friday and I really feel like taking out, I don't know, something big for a joyride, I don't have to worry about the financial costs that is going to implement on me. I want to lean heavy into industry so that in game I can have as much money to squander if I ever have the need to squander some money or desire. If I wanted to take a javelin out for a joyride, I want to have the money to be able to squander it and do so. And the best way for me to make that money is to lean heavily into industry. So when the majority of my game time, I'm going to be leaning heavy into industry to make sure I've got enough money to fund me getting to play every single part of the game. So on Monday I may want to run a combat mission, on Tuesday I may want to do this, on Thursday I may want to do that. And having that variety of gameplay is going to be expensive, because you're going to need to have a large fleet of ships. So that's why almost all the ships I've bought personally are going to be industry ships, so that even if stuff does go really bad, I can all of a sudden go, well, I've got these lifetime insurance ships that I've always got to fall back on, and one of which at the moment is my Hull C. And so even if I do manage to lose everything somehow, I've got my lifetime insurance ships I can fall back on. They're industry ships and I'll be able to remake my money. That's my mindset, and that is my desire, because I want to experience everything the game has to offer. So that's why I'm focusing on industry first, is for me personally. And the Hull C is one of my main ways I'm doing that. The Hull series is one of the main ways I'm doing that. These ships are incredibly powerful at what they do. They are insane. Nothing comes close to competing with the Hull series when it comes to trade. And I've been saying for a long time they are extremely cheap as chips for what they do. And that has been proven by what just happened to them in the sale just there. They all took a massive price hike. Like with some of them going up $100 in price, and the Hull A and B even going up a lot in price outside of game. And I've been saying it for ages, these things were cheap as chips and had no competitors. The Hull C is a competitor with ships much larger in scale in it. The Hull A is a competitor with ships much larger than it. For what they do, there's nothing competes. I see people saying, oh, the Caterpillar is roughly the equivalent to the Hull C. Not when you look at its capacity to store stuff, it isn't. The Caterpillar can store, what was it? I think it was like 400 cargo capacity. The Hull C, 4,608. 400 versus 4,608. Nothing comes close to competing with the Hull series when it's getting cargo from A to B. Now, they are the creme de la crop, the ultimate in the form of trade, and that is why they're the most popular ship for NPCs to have in game, with the Hull C being the most common of all the Hull series. But that doesn't mean they're not going to have their flaws. the Hull series is going to take a very long time to load and unload, and you're going to need either you and quite a few players to do it, or to hire staff from whatever you're trading with to come out and do it for you. There's going to be a huge trade refactor coming soon, with the Hull C coming online next year, and the Hull A as well is coming online, and I wouldn't be surprised if the B is next year as well. So we're definitely getting the Hull A and C next year, and the Hull B I wouldn't be surprised if we get next year, and then I wouldn't be surprised if the D and E come down the year after that or the year after that, but they won't be long. They will not be long. Some of the other dangers with the Hull series is that the cargo stored exterior is going to be very easy for, say, a cutlass to nip along and yoink one off with a tractor beam. They're going to be pretty damn fragile compared to other ships because they're that sort of spindly, extended sort of nature of them. So there is drawbacks to the Hull series, but when it comes to trading, there is an accept no substitute kind of thing. The 4,608 cargo on the Hull C. Oh, that is just insane. And if we go up to the Hull E, let's take a look at the real big guy. 98,304 standard cargo units. That, I heard Paul or the Astral Pub, he had a great way to describing this. This, if you take a whole planet, industrialized planet, the whole planet is one big factory, and you take a Hull E and you deliver it what it needs, you bring in enough supplies for that whole industrial factory planet for a full day in one trip with a Hull E. That is the kind of ship this is. It is insanely big, and it is insanely large amounts of cargo, the Hull E. Then you can go all the way down to the Hull A, which is the opposite end of the spectrum, but it is a trading starter ship, and it has 48 SCUs of cargo, and other ships in its sort of scale and size normally have around 8. They normally have 8 is being generous as well. I think that's how much the Nomad has. Let's see, the Aurora has like, what, 4? I think the Mustang has something similar. Like, it's the 2 to 8 is the general amount ships that size have. The Hull A, 48. The Hull A is a great member of the Hull series because it is one of the few ones that will be able to go between station and planet side. So it will be able to trade station to planet side. The Hull B can do that as well, but I think it can't load its bottom spindle, so it will only be able to take the Hull B. Let's quickly pull that up so I can see 384 cargo capacity on the Hull B, and the Hull B's main competitors are stuff like the Cutlass and the Freelancer. So again, you're looking at the 40 to 100 SCU is the standard capacity for a Hull B's competitor, yet this thing has 384, but it will only be able to take about the 280, we'll say, just for argument's sake. It'll only be able to take 280 if it was going planet side with that, because it can't load up the bottom spindle type thing. So yeah, the whole series, it is overpowered as hell at what it does, but it is also fragile and has some vulnerabilities in the forms of its cargo's exterior. It's a wee bit on the fragile side of that spindle, but if you have a good escort, which I think these things are easily going to be able to afford an escort, because if you can afford to take an escort with a quarter the amount of cargo, that means you'll have you could hire 4 times that escort and still make 4 times the profit on that run. Wait, not exactly, but you know what I mean. You've got you're going to be making like 4 times the profit in these things compared to another ship of its size, and you're going to be able to afford to have like 4 times the escorts and still make that money. It is going to be an insanely powerful ship thing once they come online. I do expect them to be more limited to space, especially definitely the Hull C up. So they're going to be more bulk trading. They're going to be like your bulk trading, the smaller traders. I would imagine these things are the things, especially the C and up, are going to be the really big ones going from system to system trading, whereas then your smaller ships like your freelancers and your hull A and B are then going to go from like your main port in a station down to planet sides and moons and that sort of stuff. And maybe like the hull C will be going from ports to port inside a system as well. Maybe a hull C would be good at that. But it feels like it needs to be a very well populated system for a hull C to be going around a system. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. You're going to have the right tool for the right job. You're not going to take a hull C just to make a delivery to a moon kind of thing. Yeah, I could talk about the whole series for another half hour, and we are still very early days. There's a lot of ships to talk about here, so I really need to move on. The whole series is another one of my babies I really love. So moving on next to the Odyssey, which has recently just been announced just the other day for me. So the Odyssey. The Odyssey is the new kid on the block. It is literally just been announced. It has not been released to the game yet. No idea when it's going to be released. I wouldn't be surprised if it was released in maybe 2-3 years time. But it is basically a competitor to the Carrack. And I don't think it's 100% a competitor to the Carrack, which is the large end of the line exploration, ultimate exploration kind of ship is what the Carrack is, and this is the new kid on the block that's a competitor to it. I feel they sort of lean into different sides of that end of the line, and this is one of the big things with CIG. They're going to say they're not going to want any ship to be 100% better than the others. They're going to make choice a big deal. They're not going to want there to be a meta, whereas, oh yeah, there may be free, like, end game, there may be free end game exploration ships, but everyone just chooses this one because it's the best. They're going to want them to have more sort of defined roles. So whereas the Carrack seems to be much better at this sort of exploration in its purest sense, sort of like mapping and orientating, like finding navigation points. It seems to be so much better at that. The Odyssey seems to be much more better at surveying. It even comes with mining and refueling, so it can mine some of the stuff that it finds. It seems to be much more of a sort of industrial explorer, whereas your Carrack is much more of a, I wouldn't say military explorer, sort of Puritan explorer? I don't know how to word it. But you get what I'm trying to say. So the Carrack comes with repair bays and stuff like that, so it can repair, has the modularity. So the Carrack does have stuff that the Odyssey can't do. And the Odyssey has things the Carrack can't do. So it's going to be a choice, and I feel like it's going to be an important choice. Does your organisation, because you're probably going to not want one of these, because these are big ships, unless you're a part of an organisation, does your organisation lean more towards like industrial side of things or other side of things? Would you mind running mining fleets? This thing would be a great scout for a mining fleet. Going ahead, finding the stuff, the mining fleet follows, it's basically part of a mining fleet. Whereas the Carrack would run fully independent most of the time. It's, yeah. It has a really, right, we should stop comparing the Odyssey to the Carrack and just start talking about the Odyssey now. So yeah, the Odyssey, it has medical facilities, so anyone gets hurt, it can heal them. It has that mining arm we talked about earlier on, so it can do some mining, and it has an onboard refinery too, so you can mine stuff, and that should help you keep... It should be only ever needing to go back to like a safe haven when it's pretty badly damaged and needing repairs, and because it should be able to refine its own fuel out in the verse, and as long as it doesn't get damaged, go on indefinitely is the kind of feeling and thoughts there. So it'll be great for an explorer. It doesn't ever really need to return to base. Has the medical facilities, so just in case anyone gets hurt, they don't need to return to help someone get healed unless they get very badly healed and you need a full-blown hospital. So yeah, so it's got the tier 2 bed bay, which is the best you can get outside of a full-blown hospital. Then it has a hangar, which you can use to either put a defensive ship in there or a smaller exploration ship if you want to have something lightly explored as you heavily explore something. I don't know how to word that. Or you could even put another... I've seen lots of people talking about putting Prospector in there, so that you can use this as a mining ship with a mining snub. Actually, it would make an okay mining ship on its own, never mind an exploration ship if you did that. And it has quite good shields, some really good shields, which is a big thing of Misc, and it's apparently, yeah, it's got a half decent firepower as well. I think it's got like several size 5 guns on its turrets, so it is not going to be easily taken down by enemies either. So it's quite a good all-round package. It's recommended crews 4 to 6. I expect if you're using it as like a mining thing, you would probably... Oh, it does have a... I forgot to talk about, it's got a lower ramp and a lower garage as well to store ground vehicles. So if you loaded up with a few rocks, had a prospector in the hangar, this thing would be great for a mining expedition. Like, you just go to this planet, you just mine it lots, and then maybe you bring its cargo is a wee bit especially if you load up on lots of vehicles. So maybe if you brought a cargo ship with you as well, like something like a... I don't think a Hull C would be ideal for the role, considering it'd be locked to space, but maybe like a couple of Freelancer Max or a... the Crusader Starlifter, like something like that would be perfect to bring along with this. So you could maybe hold up another couple of rocks or and have the extra storage, and then do a little mining expedition. It'd be great for stuff like that. Yes, the Misc Odyssey, the new kid on the block. A lot of people are upset because they feel like it nerfs their Carrack, and a lot of people are really excited because the Carracks are a bit too popular and they want to see the diversification of ships. Yes, Odyssey, sort of an endgame industrial ship themed towards exploration, which wasn't really considered an industrial job until now. This thing kind of proved people wrong, like no, exploration can be industrial, and this is the ship for it. So moving on. Oh, excuse me, man. That came out of nowhere. Moving on to the Prospector. The Prospector. It's one of my favourite ships to fly in-game at this time. That's mainly because its job is mining, and mining is one of the main fleshed out roles we have in-game at this point in time. They've been... mining's actually pretty close to being done compared to almost everything else in the game. It's the one aspect of the PU that is actually quite fleshed out. We even have a refining gameplay in-game now as well. Yes, mining is really... it's great for a relaxed evening after work. You come home, you just want to earn some credits, jump on and do some mining in some relatively safe space, and you can just do it nice, relaxed, chill, maybe put some tunes on, have family members come in and out, you're having conversations with them as you're mining. It's a nice relaxing gameplay loop, and it is, as long as you're in safe space, it's a nice relaxing gameplay loop. And it's quite one I quite enjoy, and it is quite good at making money. And the Prospector's perfect. It's the entry-level mining ship. It is the starter ship for mining. So if you've got nothing but your starter ship, and then you want to earn your first ship in-game, and you want to lean towards the industry side of things, this is definitely going to be one of the ships I would recommend to you. Like, it's an earning game, because it costs an arm and a leg for what it is outside the game. Like, all the industrial starters, for some reason CIG thinks they should be super expensive outside the game, but then in game they're not that expensive. It's only like 2 million credits, so it is a great ship. I would recommend to almost everyone, even people that want to do combat. I recommend you get a ship like the Prospector ACP in-game too with 2 million credits. And if you're a combat person, remember what I was talking about earlier, how I want the money to facilitate everything I want to do in game. I think the people that are military, unless they're doing, like, you wouldn't want them. If you're part of an org, a lot of the time, a lot of the stuff you're going to be doing isn't profit based. It's going to be more for the status of the org, or for the org's rights, or for this. You might be called up, and unless the org's paying you, like, you're going to need a way to fund your adventures and fund your gear and stuff like that. And same with everything, unless you're constantly doing mercenary work and bounties and stuff like that to fund your way, you're going to need money to fund. And having an industrial ship on the side, maybe then just go in your downtime, or maybe when not all your buddies can get on, you're the only person in your little bounty hunter cartel that's online, so you just want to do some mining that's nice and safe, and you can have some easy credits whilst you're waiting for the group to come online, and then you can do the hardcore gameplay that you really want. And I'm rambling on about the industrial starters when I shouldn't be. We should be talking about the prospector, but the prospector is the personification of these industrial starters. It is, yeah. It's got your little mining laser, it's got the saddlebags on the side that it fills up with ore and it can drop off. It is a great little industrial starter. It does what it says on the tin. These things are going to be great to have. Yeah, I need to stop rambling. I wanted to give these ships brief descriptions, and I'm going on big rambling rants. But it's Misc. I find it hard when it's Misc, because Misc release a lot of ships I really like. The Prospector is a really good industrial starter. Just don't buy it outside the game unless it's part of a CCU chain. If you're going to be using it as part of a CCU chain to a bigger ship, definitely keep it in game. Like, it's a great ship to have in game right now. But if you're not using it as part of a CCU chain, don't have it. Don't have it outside the game. Just have it inside the game. Just buy it with the 2 million credits, or rent it. Rent it is a really good way. You can rent it cheap as chips for a day. Try out those gameplay loops, and then if you really like it, save up enough money in game to buy one. It's a great little industry starter, and it's the most fleshed out gameplay loop we have in game, and it's the only thing remotely close to being finished, like gold standard in game. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Moving on to what is next, and what is next? The next is the Razor, and we'll just do the Razor all as one. So the Razor is Misc's entry into, like, the Ferrari racing style ships of Star Citizen. If you want something that's quite a good racing ship, here's one of them. There's quite a few of these in game. It does come with 2 variants: the EX, which has really good stealth parts and components and that sort of stuff, and the LX, which changes its racing parameters slightly. It makes it slightly better at maneuverability, but slightly worse in a straight line. So, do you want to be? Yeah, doesn't really matter. They're just a different variant of the Racer. Not really much else to say. I've been rambling way too much about the other ships, so I think we'll save time on this one and just call it a day there. It's a great little racer. Moving on to the Reliant series. The Reliant series is an old but gold, in my opinion, and the old parts of it make it suck, but the gold parts of it make it just have that spot in our hearts. It looks cool as hell, the Reliant series. We'll talk about the core first of all, just like we talked about the Freelancer base, and then we'll talk about how the others vary up, spice up, change up. What's the word? Oh well, they change things up. We'll talk about how the others change things up afterwards. The Reliant, back in the day, it was pushed as the multi-crew starter ship. And this is in the ye olde days when multi-crew wasn't going to be on capital size ships as we know it now, with lots and lots of crew members. It was back in the days when they saw, like, the Constellation series as being the epitome of multi-crew, like the end game of multi-crew gameplay, and they've seen this as being the starter ship for multi-crew gameplay. And with that in mind, it was built for that sort of mindset back then, where you'd have the one person being the pilot and the other person like running all the other systems on the ship, and there was going to be lots of stuff. But now that the game has drastically changed in scope, like, there's going to be next to nothing for the co-pilot to do. So this ship has sort of become what a few people have heard say is the training wheels for new players. So you'll have the veteran player as the co-pilot, teaching the new player in the pilot seat how to go around and play the game, and it's great for that. It really needs its gold standard. It really needs its gold standard because it was built for a different game. They did get some pretty damn powerful buffs, I think it was last year, which did a lot. It did a lot for them, but they still need a lot. And as I said, they're hamstrung because they were built for that different style of game, where the multi-crew, as I said, was Constellation. Like, that was the biggest multi-crew gameplay they had intended, whereas now they're intending to have 50 players on one Javelin. Like, there's a big difference between 50 players on one ship and 4. Reliant Core, we should actually talk about it now instead of like why it sucks a wee bit with that multi-crew there. It has 6 SEU of cargo, so which is quite good for its size, so it's a good wee trader. Has an okay amount of firepower. It's a great starter ship, but its drawbacks here is because it was originally intended to be a multi-crew ship. It is huge. It is huge. There is a half decent stuff to move around. It is really cool in its rotation sort of effects, but it is a huge target when it comes to combat. So if you're going to be even though this thing is armed quite well, if it gets so much as sneezed at, like a wing's going to get blown off and it's going to cause problems. It's going to be really easy to hit. It's a lot more fragile than it should be because it's a lot bigger than other ships of its size and scale. And by size, I really should have said scale, as in what its job is, its role is. Yeah. So we should move on and talk about its others, because it's a starship. Then we have the Reliant Mako, which is quite an interesting thing. It's the only ship we've got like this. This is your news reporter in space. It's your news van. It loses some of its guns to gain cameras, and it has a full editing bay for like videos in the back and that sort of stuff. If you watch the IAE stuff recently, like the full time you've seen them editing the videos and Jax is doing his bits and all that, and they're like recording the footage and all that, they're in the back of a Mako. And it's in the back of a Mako that you see, and you even see him walking out and onto the IEE room floor from the Mako. Yeah, we really don't know what that is going to look like in game though, or if it's ever going to be implemented. We've got the ship in game, but we don't have any of that functionality. If we don't know if that's ever going to be a functionality, is it going to be just basically a glorified ornament? We don't know. We need to wait and see. So the Mako could potentially be absolutely awesome because it's the only ship that does this sort of stuff, or it could just be a glorified ornament. For the now, it's nothing but a glorified ornament. We really need to wait and see. So moving on to the next Reliant series, the Reliant Sen, which is takes the same little core that we talked about, and it changes things up and makes it a exploration and science platform. So this is the little imagine this to be like the science snub. So if you've got like an Endeavour as your giant science sort of factory, this is your little science snubs. I could see being on a hangar on one of the modules on the Endeavour, sent off to maybe go find a specific plan on Microtech and bring it back so they can try and make an antidote with it and that sort of stuff. It's going to be your little science, entry-level science ship. You're going to be your entry and then your science snub when you get towards endgame. We don't really know much about the science gameplay loops or anything like that yet, so again, this could be a really great ship, but it could be basically a glorified ornament. We don't know. The science gameplay we know is going to at least be something, but we don't know how good it is, we don't know how in depth it's going to be. It's really just a wait and see. Right, and moving on to the last in the Reliant series, the Reliant Tana does get a lot more missiles than the base version. It's basically the combat variant of the Reliant, and it is quite a good little civilian class combat vessel. For civilian class fighter, it's relatively good. It is. Still has those glaring weaknesses of the Reliant though, where it's way too big for what it is, so it's quite easy to hit. But it does have those missiles. The two civilian grade military fighters are this and the Mustang, and they're both quite good at what they do. It's I wouldn't want to go toe to toe with a military grade fighter in one of those two ships, but they are like they're fighters. They're actual dedicated fighters. They're not military grade, but they're dedicated fighters. And so if you're spending a lot of the time going after stuff that is not dedicated fighters, you're still going to completely outpower them. If you like, they really excel in fighting like pirates and other stuff like that, or fighting starter ship era sort of stuff, because they're not dedicated fighters, whereas these things are, so they just have that wee bit of an edge over them. Yeah, if you wanted to get into combat sort of style gameplay, the Tana would be an excellent place for you to go, because it does have that the gun racks and stuff inside it. It is a dedicated fighter. It'd be great for an entry-level bounty hunter type ship. Well, not bounty hunter, because you don't have anywhere to store people, but a great mercenary entry-level ship. Until you can get your hands on some military-grade stuff, this would be a great way to go. Especially if you want that access to a second player. So the Reliant series, I really want them to be good. They're cool as hell, but they really need this upgrading to gold standard, and we need to wait and see. So, moving on from the Reliant series, what is next? Oh, it's actually the last one. We're already at the last one. The Starfarer, and I suppose we'll talk about the Starfarer Gemini at the same time. The Starfarer. Now, this is another one that has the community quite split, because a lot of people really loved the original idea of the Starfarer, where it was a sort of mining ship at the same time. It used to be the gas mining ship, and then it has a refinery on board to refine that gas and turn it into fuel, and then it is a refueling ship as well at the same time. And when CIG have been refining the mining gameplay loop, they sort of put a big question mark over the gas refining, and we don't know if it's going to be getting that anymore. So it's a big question mark. We don't know how. We know it's still going to have a refinery for refining gas and turning it into fuel, and we know it's going to have one hell of a lot of gas storage, and we know it's going to have the ability to refuel other ships. We just don't know if it's going to have the ability to gather that gas on its own anymore, and a lot of people are really upset over that, because that's the whole thing they wanted. They wanted to go out, gather their gas on their sails, and then sell it to people, whereas they might need a second ship for gathering that gas right now, the Quantanium and stuff like that. But we really don't know. We really need to wait and see. The interior of the ship is painful. It is painful. It is a trademark. You can see how far Star Citizen has come, because it is really old now, the interior of this ship. And I've heard a lot of people say you can tell that this ship's interior was built with the mindset of making it a FPS, first person shooter, like daka 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 with your gun, level for Squadron 42, and we also often get it in diverse, like in Xenofreight, and there's a couple of missions as well, I think, where you've got a Starfarer, you can go on board and have to kill some pirates. Yeah, it is a bygone of an older game again, just like the Reliant was, but in different ways. You can see just how far they've come. Like, the interiors of ships, they've come so far since they made this ship. It is an old but gold ship once again. That really, the old parts hurt, but the gold parts are good. Military fleets are going to need some form of Starfarer or Starfarer Gemini following them around to refuel them. Large orgs are definitely going to need these things for refueling their capital ships, unless they want to be restricted into the areas they can go or the longevity of their expeditions kind of thing, by the simple fact that they're going to have to go back to refuel, unless they're in something like the Odyssey we talked about earlier, which can refuel itself with its mining, laser mining. This thing doesn't have laser mining, which is why it's a big question mark if it can do it anymore. Yeah, it's going to be quite a good little ship. For it being a gas miner, it has quite a lot of physical storage too. So I really see this ship as basically going to be in the premium supply ship for a fleet. Like, if you need goods, like you want to refuel and bring it more food and bring it more ammunition, send a Starfarer. Like, a Starfarer will be able to go pick up 291 SCU cargo units I've seen in my notes here, of food, of ammunition, of essentials, of medicine, and it's going to also be able to pick up an absolute, its main job is gas fuel. It's going to be able to pick up an absolute ton of that. It's going to be able to come back, refuel and resupply your ship. That's what this ship is perfect at. It's also relatively good in atmosphere. It's okay to get in and out of atmosphere, so it's going to be quite good for dropping down supplies down to planet side too. Then you've got the Gemini, which is the military variant, which has a lot more armor. Now, the thing that I want to point out here though as well is they did say that the Gemini having a lot more armor is going to make it a lot more heavier. So it's going to be a lot more sluggish in atmosphere. And one of the main things that I would be concerned about as well is if it's taken off from atmosphere with a full load, like full of supplies, full of fuel, and it's taken off in atmosphere with that extra armor, how sluggish is that going to be getting into atmosphere? Is it still going to be able to get out into space? But yeah, there's nothing else really to talk about. The Starfarer Gemini, old but gold, is going to be if you've got a large fleet, I think having one of these is going to be mandatory just for resupplying your fleet with fuel and then the other stuff, as I said, as well. Yeah. That has been Misc, and you can see why I really like them. I expect us to get a lot more Misc ships in the days to come, in the years to come, especially when more and more industry starts getting really looked at. Like, mining's really fleshed out at the moment, but as more and more of the industry side of things get fleshed out, I expect there to be more and more Misc ships come online, because Misc are the premium, the creme de la crop when it comes to industry, with Argo being the much more lower tiered, not like Drake, bottom of the barrel kind of tier, but quite low, whereas Misc are much more, they're not quite as high as Origin, but you can get there on that same sort of side of the spectrum as Origin. So yes, that has been Misc. Quite a big one. I wanted to wait until after the IAE because I knew the Odyssey was coming. So I didn't want to have to go, oh yeah, we did Misc yesterday, but now the IAE's been here, we know about this ship as well, and add it on. And yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed Misc. I shall see you all next time. And hopefully I won't ramble as much next time. I doubt I will. Misc is a special place in me, just because of the function of these ships. Like, it's not Misc themselves I end up rambling about, it's the functions of these ships, the things they can do, the things they facilitate. That's what gets me excited. The gameplay loops that they're going to make me so much money. If you want to make money, Misc is a way to go, a really good way to go. And again, I'm rambling, I'm talking on. Yeah, hope you've all enjoyed this. We'll see you all next time. Bye. Bye.